Hello everyone, so this is the Nvidia GeForce overlay lesson, and I'm going to use my favorite game of all time, Genshin Impact. To activate the overlay on Mac, press and hold Command 9 and release. This means it's being recorded. And usually, for people like me, for other gamers, what they do when you're starting recording is that you want to, for games like Genshin Impact, view your missions and show the map to players, because this makes the content more engaging, and this allows players to know where the freak are we going and what are we doing. And then, of course, you can do some combat stuff, swing, blah blah blah. And then, yep, that means you're finished. Whenever you record through Nvidia GeForce, it will go to your movies folder on Mac through an Nvidia folder. Go to GeForce Now and select your game, Genshin Impact or other games. Select that file, and then that's where the footage is going. And then through over here, what I like to do is pretty much just copy or drag that footage to another folder that I create manually myself, so I can organize what I'm doing, such as best characters, best builds, or this is how to blah blah blah, or my English lessons. To start the GeForce overlay on PC, Lenovo, Chromebook, even Huawei, you have to press and hold Alt-Z or Alt-R for the performance overlay. While ironic, Huawei devices in mainland China naturally block Nvidia GeForce despite its CEO. So anywhere else that Huawei is sold outside mainland China, you can still access Nvidia GeForce. And then let's get to the method. So whenever I start that recording, I'm just bursting, just for the fun of it. I'm trying to show something interesting first, and that's when I start it, and then I kind of delay the time a little. I go to missions. We're gonna do a hangout event right over here. We're gonna teleport over here. I include the loading screen because a lot of players appreciate raw footage over way over edited footage. And then I get into it right over here. Alright, now this is a scene with dialogue.
Huh? What is it? Is there something on my face? I may not be for long. Anyway. I shouldn't give up now.
Okay, now let's say this is a long dialogue and we need a break when we're using the overlay because it's easier to work with shorter footage. So I'm going to go to a pausing section with all the dialogue, the transcription, and then right now we're going to end the recording, okay? So, and then the footage is saved, and then when we start recording, we want a bit of a time delay. So we're going to start recording soon in about now. 1, 2, 3, and then we can kind of start it.
But who am I kidding?
And then, yes, you know the rest. We're trying to get all the dialogue. Let's say you are a YouTube streamer and you're trying to get the dialogue just because the dialogue is very interesting. Or you could be, if you're doing something similar to like my English lessons, you might want to have a delay from one line to the other line in case you need to explain certain things that needs a natural delay to make it feel more engaging. If you want to be a Hoyo creator or Genshin Impact creator specifically, a lot of the stuff that we do for the funny stuff is like this. This is from one of my funny videos. Genshin Impact, but everyone wants a drink. Link in the description below.
Today I think I'll have a glass of...
You can put down that bottle you stole from behind the counter.
something cold.
Go on, drink some more.
Let me buy you a drink. I'm still waiting for my drink.
I ordered some wine-fermented sweet rice balls for you, if that counts.
And here you are drinking tea like it's the most natural thing in the world, huh?
Want some tea?
Not particularly. If you want to drink some that badly, just say so.
Fine, I'd like to get some tea. Want me to get you a cup too, since I've already made it?
Might as well then.
Now is not the time.
Osmanthus wine.
Yeah, as you can tell over here, the experience to getting this fun footage and having that, appealing kind of fast editing. Some editors are just a little faster than me, but the point is that we want the footage to be a little small, a little less in, let's say, 5 minutes to work with. Because when that overlay or double overlay footage is relatively small, in your editor room or in the other person's editor room, they have a shot list in mind. Okay? And it's going to look like this. We're going to have Denzel and Kaya talking, and then we're going to cut to Zhongli having red rice wine balls with you, and then to the next scene with Lynette having tea, and then on the next scene, we got Cloran and Rivesley. Because a lot of the time, how this works is that you need to quickly identify what scene you want as you're thinking this in your storyboard for that funny video. And notice that in this file, I suggest everyone to have a meme box. Such as, you want to have your ahead and Tayo, I still can't even say it, with, I think I have a glass of, that's in my video. And then other stuff like Paimon Cries, I'm still waiting for my drink. Just look at how this is organized. Especially Shut Up Paimon. That's often reused. Because you definitely deserve some files on repeat. And quick access to them. With less time to upload. When you are making fun videos in future collaborations or yourself, you need to have a memory card while playing the game. Hopefully you save yourself some footage from playing the game and its Archon missions. You need to quickly identify a scene in your head. Denzel talks to his traveler, and what I had in mind in that video was Denzel saying, "Oh, I'm still waiting for my drink." I know that in this 3-minute and 52 video, that somewhere in my files, I can get to this scene very quickly, because right over here, he says it right exactly over here, now is not the time, but we need the audio there. So we might want to stretch with the double overlay using Streamlabs, record this over here.
Been hidden for hundreds of years!
No. Now is not the time. No, it's just... I'm still waiting for my drink.
Seriously?
And then you can have that delay and then end scene. Because that's most of the time what you are doing as a film editor and or getting footage. And when I say double overlay, that may mean you may need to download something like Streamlabs Desktop and or OBS. You could totally do that with OBS onto your own footage. If you're using Streamlabs, all you have to do is really press record, and then remember all your movie files, whether PC or Mac, should go to a movie folder of some sort, thematically speaking. And then when you're double overlaying, you don't need that much fancy stuff really. You just need to input your source, and it kind of does it already automatically. In case you're having any trouble, try to use these. This is automatic. All you have to do is start record, swap what you need to into your Nvidia GeForce recording, and you're pretty much all set to go. And then when you're finished, end recording. Enough of my crappy Nikon audio. And then last but not least, you really want to be organized when you look in your files. You don't want to spend 20 minutes looking in your files for that one funny thing that you just got in your head. In Hoyo Creation, in all their funny videos, sometimes all of which are GeForce overlay, but also mixed in with double overlay, meaning you have to overlay the long footage that you had from the GeForce overlay or other overlays. And the reason why you may consider that is that when you double overlay your long overlay, we're trying to reduce the upload speed. We double overlaid, let's just pretend that this is a 10-minute dialogue, and we had to break it down to 5 minutes. It uploaded it fairly quickly, right over here into iMovie. Of course, if you're using DaVinci Resolve, it's so much faster. Because a lot of the times what film editors do is that we just need the footage and then maybe we can work on it now or later. So we gotta wait for the upload. Yay, done. That was very quick. The power of short footage. It makes your editor, or if you're the editor, very happy. Because most of the time what you're doing here, you are a natural storyboard artist. You have something visual in mind, and you kind of have a sense of what is seen, heard, and what is in the action, or other sequences that are happening in the video game. So once you play Fontaine, when you get to this dialogue here, when you meet Risley and Clorant together, this scene is actually very long than you think. It's probably about 10 to 20 minutes, and that's a lot of footage if you got that all in one go. So the point is why we need that break in dialogue, as you see over here.
I shouldn't give up now.
And because she finished her dialogue, I kind of had a little delay when I was doing this. And then I paused it with a transcription. Again, I'm showing this because it's part of the art of overlay. And then I ended it. And then, in between you can totally get breaks or something, like you can go to the bathroom, eat stuff, or I don't know. And then when you get back into it, you can start the footage. Because a lot of the scenes in Genshin Impact are so long. Especially this one, cutscene.
Reality is pain!
So yeah, sorry that I have to talk a little over it, but let's just feel this out and see how long it is. So in scenes like this, as you see there, you can't pause the cutscene with the transcription minus button sign. So you have to plan to be with your computer and tough out long cutscenes. My recommendation for genres and games such as Genshin Impact, you want those cinematic cutscenes from start to finish, uninterrupted, okay? Stuff is happening. And then let's pretend that, you know what, this is a really long cutscene, right? It's a cinematic. So let's say you're like very long into it. It's right over here. This is where you would cut it and then cut back in very quickly to the action over here, the gameplay over here, where we're fighting Wanderer. Because in real time, it'll look like this. The scene is about to end recording, start recording, very quickly. We have action now. Just because it's very nice to separate the cinematic from the gameplay. Why do we have to sometimes separate cinematics from the gameplay? Well, because in cinematics, the frame rate is so high. So we want to have that footage separate, which is why we need to cut out and then start the overlay from over here so we could actually work with the gameplay footage after into whatever we're creating. And wear headphones because sound is a major cue. And then generally, if there is no fade screen from the cinematic to the boss fight, like in this example, I would not stop your recording, okay? Because it'll ruin the rhythm of what you are recording and what you are gaining from that footage. There's certain animations during a boss fight, especially still animations, where you could try to stop the footage just to take a break from that heavy cinematic scene from the boss fight, so that way you could record again in the boss fight. I generally would not risk it, but this is Genshin Impact that we're talking about. The next footage is the Dotori boss fight. Some of it may be spoilers for you, so this will be a delay for if you need to click away from it. Really quickly, let's identify the start and stop points of when I was recording the Dotori fight. So somewhere a cutscene ended. This is a battle. And then I stopped recording right when he was speaking and paused the dialogue, and then started it again within that dialogue to start here. And then I stopped part 28 right around over here because I could tell that this is leading up to a cutscene. Footage 29, I am still on the part 28 dialogue. Now it's rolling just because it's going to a next cutscene. And then I stopped 29 in the end of this dialogue to start on the next one on part 30 on the same dialogue. And then part 30 fades into another cutscene. And then as you can tell, part 30 has a cutscene into the boss battle gameplay scene. And then, Jesus, we're still on part 30 where I included this weird QuickTime kind of cutscene into another cutscene over here to the boss fight over here. This is trying to show you the importance of when you can't quite separate the cinematic from the boss fight, just because a lot of things are happening here. And then after a little that of those action sequences in part 30, another cinematic occurs. Yay, QuickTime cutscene scene. And then at the end here, there's a loading screen, which means that after that cutscene, I am able to stop this footage and then start the next footage for part 31. Like any boss fight like Dotori, your two opportunities are only dialogue that you can pause and or loading screens. Okay, and then onto our next method. So let's say we want to consolidate a few actions, like a short dialogue over here, we're back in action because that dialogue ended a little earlier. I'm starting again for the next following sequences, right? So once, what am I doing here? We're doing a hangout. So a lot of the times in Genshin Impact, a lot of times that dialogue will follow up with other dialogue. You might have to do, I don't know, fighting bad guys in that video, including talking to maybe this guy and this person and maybe these people over here if prompted, just because, you know, it's generally okay if it's about like 12 minutes of that, maybe less than 20, just because depending on what editing software you're using, it should do fine with that total time limit. Generally, you want to separate dialogue from action just because dialogue is usually longer and set up longer, while action sequences and boss sequences just have generally a higher frame rate on top of performance and energy. And then the last bit in the process is on one dashboard is your game, your GeForce game. On the other dashboard is how you organize and film as you go within that folder. This process is very simple just because as you film and go, you can start naming files and dragging and dropping, naming folders. Makes life a little easier. Yeah, all of this for whatever video you're making. The takeaway is Nvidia GeForce Overlay is very simple. The methodology is tied to the genre and how you organize your footage. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this really helps.
Yawning without covering your mouth. Uncouth.